Wade Spann joined the Marine Corps in middle of August. He was sent to Paris Island for boot camp, and it was life-changing. He hadn't been a good student. He signed up when he was in 11th grade. He was 17, maybe 18 at the time that he actually got in. Paris Island kind of changed his life, culture shock kind of thing. Then about 2 weeks later, September of 2001, we all know what happened then. And that really changed his life. Because he went from someone that wanted to join the military in order to get a trade, go back to school maybe, to someone that was going to war. And that he did. He landed in Kuwait, and I think it was late 2003, somewhere around there. He was part of a weapons unit, tow missiles, javelin missiles, things like that, riding in Humvees. They made their way up through Iraq, Sadr City, Ramadi, Fallujah. He ended up serving 3 tours because he enjoyed and believed in what he was doing. 3 tours in Iraq. He was in an unarmed Humvee as part of a convoy outside of Fallujah. Hit a roadside bomb, 2 of them actually. And had shrapnel go through the back of his head. Not life-threatening. A couple of the guys in his Humvee were a couple of guys in the Humvee behind him, which was, several yards, I don't know how far back they were, experienced the concussion of that blast to such an extent that it gave them concussions and just demolished the Humvee he was in. It was on fire. He was pulled out. Recovered a bit in the hospital. He eventually got out of the Marines, but he saw some significant action while he was there, and that plus having a big chunk of shrapnel go through the back of your head, concussions and all that stuff, gave him a traumatic brain injury before they knew what traumatic brain injuries were, what they were about, how to recover from them, and all that stuff. So he got out of the military, went to community college, didn't do so hot there. A friend of his convinced him to apply for George Washington University. He didn't believe he had a chance of getting in, but he did, made it in. And through the course of his time there, he and his buddy, who was also a veteran, realized that George Washington University wasn't accommodating veterans, especially veterans with the kind of injuries that he had received, to the extent that they could have been. So they lobbied a little bit. They ended up forming a veterans organization at George Washington University, which still exists, and helped them with things like, tutoring, counseling, physical problems, all kinds of things like that. They got put into place. He finally got out of George Washington, and he decided that the only way that he could overcome all these problems that he was having, PTSD, was to get out, away from everything, and he did a road trip with his brother. And he felt really good while they were on that road trip, kind of reconnecting with nature and seeing the country and that kind of thing. Did that for a while. Then he started going to, and he was battling with alcohol and other vices, that coping mechanisms that he said were unhealthy. He didn't go into detail over all that. He did mention alcohol, womanizing. So he started seeking counseling on somebody's advice, and he felt like that helped him a little bit to try to get things in perspective. But the counseling that he was getting wasn't enough. So he would bounce around from these different organizations, different nonprofits, the VA, all these different things, and he ended up taking little bits from everything and kind of forming that into his own therapy regimen and healing program. And in the course of doing that, he managed to talk to a whole lot of other veterans that were going through the same thing, and he realized that they were helping each other. He eventually became a mentor at one of these nonprofit organizations, and he felt like he was getting more out of it than people were getting from him. But he realized the importance of people that had been through the same thing, sharing, talking about it, working through it, as opposed to some counselor that didn't have a clue what being in the middle of what he had been in meant. So at some point he decided to do another road trip. He convinced one of his friends to let him borrow his truck, and he went on a road trip that lasted about 3 months. He went 15,000 miles from Maine to Seattle, Washington, to Southern California, and pretty much everywhere. And he would stop along the way at some of these different organizations, stop at some of the friends' houses that he knew along the way. And it became kind of a journey of healing, not just for him, but for all the people he was running into. And he decided to do something with that. So he kept reaching out to people. One of his friends hadn't been heard from in 11 years, had been in jail, in and out of jail, heroin addict. One of them spent years homeless. And he reconnected with a lot of these people, and through their interactions, a lot of them were able to get help, turn their life around, get jobs, that kind of thing. So he kind of made it his reason for being was getting and giving help to veterans of the Iraq War specifically, but even Vietnam and other, he ran into a whole bunch of different veterans from different generations, and it became this really great healing process for a lot of people. And he continues to do that. He continues to reach out. He continues to encourage other people to reach out to people that he may not know or may not know their whereabouts. Find these people, talk to them, help them, get them some help. He dealt with I think at least 3 of the people that he served with ended up killing themselves, and it was just terrible for him. And he decided that enough was enough, and he was going to try to do something about it, and he continues to do something about it to this day. Wade Spann, Marines, someone that encountered situations in life that can just crush a person, and he's decided to turn it into something that can build people up. He doesn't call it post-traumatic stress disorder. He calls it post-traumatic stress growth. It's an opportunity to grow and to overcome and to become better than you are and leave those demons behind, or try to. So I think he's doing a wonderful thing, an absolutely wonderful thing. So Mr. Spann, if you happen to see this, which I doubt, can't tell you how sorry I am that you've had to deal with what you've had to deal with. And I also can't tell you how thankful I am that you were willing to put yourself in a position for those things to occur to you. I love my freedoms, and I realize that you're a big part of an enormous group of people that has served, fought, died to protect those freedoms and to make those freedoms be a part of our lives. So I thank you. Thank you very much for your service, for your sacrifice, for your work with other veterans. That is a really important thing, and I'm really grateful that there are people like you out there that realize what it takes for someone in that situation to get through it, and that's the interaction with other people, specifically other people that have gone through similar things. And I think your work is just fantastic. I think it's incredibly important, and I salute you, Wade Spann.